Welcome to Scrolling to Death. You are about to jump into a conversation that I had with the incredible Jennie DeSerio, who is the mom of Mason Edens. Mason died at 16 by suicide after getting served horrific suicide content on TikTok. If you take away anything from today's conversation, it's that TikTok and other social media platforms are actively preying on our children, specifically when they're going through a hard time. Conversations like this can be hard to hear at times, but unfortunately, the world we live in is not safe for our kids online, and we need to have open conversations with them. And that requires us as parents educating ourselves on the harms. So thank you again for doing the work and for protecting your children. Let's go ahead and jump into my conversation with Jennie. Starts with what were you saying?
So I had a friend up this weekend, and one of the things, and she's a really, really good friend, one of my best friends, been on family vacations with us, and she knows she's got a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old, both boys, and she's seen everything that we've gone through. And she's restricting Snap recently because something happened at her local school. We're having this conversation. She says, "Why are educators not talking to us about this? Why is the school counselor? Why is the school administration? Why are the teachers not saying, you need to talk to your kids about this? You need to ask your kids these questions?" Because the one question that I've been asking since losing Mason is, every kid that comes in my house, have you had a social media harm? And they ultimately all say no. But then you define what a social media harm is, and 100% across the board, they all say yes.
It's affecting every kid who's on social media, especially because they can access at any point and when they want. But I mean, at 13, parents are like, if it says 13, then I guess it's safe for 13-year-olds. And I mean, what have you learned about, is it safe for 13-year-olds?
No, it's not safe for, I know adults that are struggling with this. I think that it's not safe for anybody under 18. I would even push it to 21 when your frontal lobe is fully developed. Even my 20-year-old, I see him on his phone too much. It's absolutely not safe for minors, especially the younger. If they get to the age where they can earn some money, if they can go mow a neighbor's yard, take the pets out, whatever, they can get a device that you're not aware of and make accounts that you're not aware of. So even if we do all the things, all the right things, and we set in all the parental controls, all they have to do is have Wi-Fi access to a device that we don't even know exists. And they can set up email accounts, and then they can set up all these profiles on all these different platforms, and we have no oversight. So one of the things I get most from parents is, why weren't you checking his phone? This is his phone. It was with me all the time. I went through it constantly. It was just understood in this house. If I walk up to you and I say, give me your phone, give me my phone, and I go through everything, I have access to everything. What I didn't realize is how quickly an algorithm can change. I didn't realize that overnight, literally liking one video, an algorithm can completely flip. And so in less than 2 weeks' time, the algorithm flipped on TikTok. So I was that parent that was involved. I am that parent. I check kids' phones. I've got one minor in my care now. It's a constant conversation. It's a constant discussion. So when parents say, well, you should have been checking, or you should have been having the conversations, you should have been doing this, you should have been doing that. No, I was that mom. I am that mom.
Somebody said that to you?
Oh, I've had people directly say it to my face.
Oh my God, Jennie.
Yeah, no, directly to my face. I was getting ready to go to, I was going to DC to meet with senators, and I was on vacation with my husband, and we cut our trip short, and we cut the trip short so I could go to DC. We were in this little swim up suite in Mexico, all this resort, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, so this woman overhears me talking about leaving a day early so I can get to DC so I can do some advocacy work. And she's like, well, do you mind if I ask? Well, I stay really, really high level with her. I lost my 16-year-old to suicide on November 14th, 2022. He was fed a bunch of suicidal content on TikTok, I'm going to work with the legislators, the senators, to try to get some legislation passed that would protect kids online.
Mm-hmm.
And she looked at me and she
Mm-hmm.
flat out said, well, ultimately this comes down to the parents. And if you were watching closer, he'd probably still be alive. I just was like, I can't. I can't.
You can't even start. Like, there's too much there.
No, but what I
No,
did say to
no.
her was, you know what? You can have that opinion, but I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
continue to do what I'm going to do because you don't know what you don't
Mm-hmm.
know. And I know.
Right.
And I'm going to continue to fight for your kids. Not because it's getting my son back, but because I want to save your
Right.
kids. And her kids were
That should
little.
be the
Yeah,
response.
that was
That should be the response every time. The fact that you have the strength to go out and tell this story over and over and relive this tragedy just to save other children, that's the takeaway.
yeah.
And also that, I mean, we'll go through this in more detail, but these platforms are serving harmful content and kids can hide content, kids can hide devices. Like it's nearly impossible because the platforms are broken by design
Mhm.
in serving this deadly content to children. There's that, but also we can layer parental monitoring on, but it's not good enough because they won't let us into the API. We know why we need Sammy's Law and things like that to help us really dig deep and get alerts when they're served deadly things, which shouldn't even be there in the first
Yeah.
place.
One, it shouldn't be
So,
there. Two,
right,
kids shouldn't have access to it. Three,
right.
you can't tell me that these brilliant MIT grads that can develop these complex algorithms and complex platforms cannot find a
Mm-hmm.
way to see whether a user is under the age 18 and make sure.
Mm-hmm.
So even if we have all the parental safeguards in place, there's nothing that gets
Mm-hmm.
through because the videos that
Right.
Mason saw, they were not in compliance with TikTok's user interface
Mm-hmm.
agreements. They were openly suicidal, openly like,
Yes. That's a choice because they can catch that. They were saying things like kill yourself. I mean, there was words and text, verbal and text, all saying suicidal things. So how that's a choice not to catch that and remove it because they have the technology to catch
yeah,
it.
they absolutely have the technology. One of the bigger things for me, and it was kind of eye opening for me, is
Mm-hmm.
this. There was one TikTok that it showed two kids standing in the middle of a school hallway, and they were kind of
Mm-hmm.
suspended in time. And it was fast track. All the kids around them were like moving, 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 high
Mm-hmm.
speed, right? So, but they were suspended in time while it was fast paced around them. And it had this music, kind of depressing music. But then the verbiage on it said, "TikTok knows more about my mental health than my own friends and family do." So as a society, we think we have all these guardrails in place. Go to your counselors, go to your parents, talk to your pediatrician, talk to your therapist, talk to your friends. But TikTok is specifically, there are videos that say, don't trust every guardrail our society has in place.
So TikTok is encouraging them to go to TikTok when they're feeling sad and depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And then TikTok is reinforcing their feelings by serving them more depressing
Yep.
content.
And we understand you better than the people who love you do. So come to us
Oh
more.
my God, that's so messed up.
That's the one that got me the most. Like, I know that the suicidal stuff was horrible, but the fact that he got
Yeah.
a video sent to him on his For You feed that said,
Mm-hmm.
we know you, we understand you better than your own friends and family do, that
Mm-hmm.
undermines every single thing that our society is thinking that we're setting up as safeguards. It it's
Mm-hmm.
taking that safety net away from our children, and it's telling our children, no, 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 no. Don't trust people you're supposed to trust. Trust us.
Oh my God. So, what do you think about this TikTok legislation requiring TikTok to be sold to an American company or we'll take it away from our app stores?
I mean, I think it's great. I think it's the best thing
Mm-hmm.
we can do as far as foreign
Mm-hmm.
policy goes and data
Yeah.
collection for national security. But I don't know that it's going to change a whole lot of the content that is accessible. I mean, you see this same problem across multiple platforms. This is not just a TikTok problem. So even if
Right.
Meta or Snap or Discord or somebody else was to buy them, X, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that they're going
Mm-hmm.
to self-regulate. So
Right.
as long as these companies are allowed to push their products on our children and they
Mm-hmm.
put their profits before they put our children's mental health and well-being,
Mm-hmm.
there's never going to be a win for our children. Our children are always going to come out on the losing side of that.
Yeah. Do you feel like TikTok is the most harmful, or do you feel like they're all kind of on the same playing field?
I mean, from my standpoint, I feel like TikTok and Snapchat are probably the most harmful, but I have so many
Mm-hmm.
friends that I have met through my journey that I have seen what their children have gone through because of
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, because of Facebook, and
Yeah.
their trauma and their loss is as great and as deep as what mine is. So my
Mm-hmm.
personal opinion is based on my personal story, but what I've
Yeah.
witnessed is that these other platforms are just as dangerous. And I've
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately have too many other moms and dads that I know, that
Mm-hmm.
I work with,
Yeah.
that I did, like talk with daily, who are living the same nightmare that I'm living. And it's
Yeah.
just it's not right. It's not, I mean, you see this memory board behind me. All these
Mm-hmm.
happy, happy, happy pictures of my child.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have
Yeah.
left are the memories. And that's what all these other parents have. But then you have parents of kids who haven't passed, who their children have been sextorted, who have been cyberbullied, who have been given body dysmorphic content, who fight through mental illness now because it was served to them on whichever platform it was. And so these are
Mm-hmm.
long term effects that these parents have to deal with day in and day out. They lost a
Mm-hmm.
child they once had. They now have a child who is coping and barely getting by, and like they had to be constantly, on high alert. So they lost a child too, just in a different way. So
Yeah.
it's not just those of us who actually have a child who's deceased, it's those of us
Mm-hmm.
who have children that struggle, whether they are alive or not. We still lose our
Mm-hmm.
children and we're still grieving, and it just needs to stop. And until society stops blaming the parents and starts holding the platforms accountable, and the platforms start actually holding themselves responsible, they're not going to self-regulate, and the blame
Mm-hmm.
cannot be put on parents. It can't,
No.
because there is not a parent in America, not one single parent in America, that is smarter than the algorithms. Period.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing else to
Yeah.
say.
And it's so addictive that our kids don't stand a chance to it. They're going to figure out how to access it on their friend's device, on another device, at any point. And so, in your opinion, parents are just fighting a losing battle
Oh yeah,
at this point.
they've lost the battle as soon as they get out of the gate. They may not realize it,
Yeah.
and hopefully your child, if you're listening to this, hopefully your child is not in a vulnerable place. Vulnerable place. Mason was in a vulnerable place. We had open lines of communication. We talked. I literally talked to him the night before. I asked him, "Are you suicidal? Are you having suicidal thoughts? Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
considered self harm?" No, 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 no. Like, to the point where,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know how, like, the mom teenage boy conversation, he's like, "Mom, stop." This
Yeah.
was the night before. 24 hours later, I was taking this phone away from him, and he had what I can only call a nervous breakdown. And then I
Mm-hmm.
inadvertently created a mental health crisis. It was like taking heroin away from a heroin addict, and I didn't realize it.
Okay. So can you speak to that? What would you advise parents? Because our instinct is to take the device away because all of it stems, all that crap stems from the device. So what would you advise parents around that?
If you feel like your child, if there are any signs at all that your child is addicted, then don't cold turkey and take the phone away. Sit down and have a conversation, talk about the harms that can come from the addiction. Talk about that I'm recognizing this addiction. Let's recognize it together. Let's work through this together. We're going to slowly start weaning you off of this and we're going to start limiting. I'm not taking it from you. You're not losing it.
Right.
We're going to start becoming more self-aware and we're going to together we're going to slowly lessen your dependence on this device. So I'll give it to you during this time, but during this time, it's going to be put away. So if they're addicted to XYZ platforms, I don't recommend just cold turkey taking those away because that's one of the things I actually spoke with the Surgeon General about is I really want him to change his statement, his public health statement about social media, because I want him to include, because I want it to come from the highest source in our government. And I want it to come down to the entire infrastructure that we have, our administrators, our counselors, our doctors, our pediatricians, our therapists, all of that. I want those, I want the dialogue to change from just take the kid's phone away from them, take the device away from them, because that's what I did. And that's what we all, our first instinct is, well, I'm just going to take it away. And I had been doing that for years. But that night, it was just more than his brain could handle. So had I known what I know now, I would have sat him down and I would have said, hey, you're going to get the phone back in the morning. I would have calmly like, I just want you to get a good night's sleep tonight. I can see that your anxiety is high. I can see that you're stressed. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about why you're feeling that way. And then, let's you can get the phone back, but let's talk about going forward, how we're going to start limiting or not limiting, because I wouldn't use the word limiting with kids. If you use the word limiting, then they're going to say, no. We're going to slowly start lessening our dependence on it. So I do think that when they get to a certain age, that you can have those discussions about this is how we become self-aware. This is how we become mindful of our own mental health. So that's one thing I was talking to him about his mental health. We were talking about going and seeing a therapist. I had an appointment that week for him to see his pediatrician. So he knew he was not in a good place. I did not catch the deep addiction to the device.
Well, that's the big difference between like our generation and prior. We went through similar things. I mean, was Mason going through a breakup? Like similar things that are very devastating at the time in your teenage brain. But the difference is we didn't have this addictive piece that was serving us suicidal content to push us over the edge. Like we could just deal with it and move on. And now the suicide rates in teens are so high. It's devastating. And the difference is the addictive smartphone and the algorithms and the platforms, right?
Well, and so a lot of people want to attribute the teen mental health crisis to COVID. And one of the things that I said directly to the Surgeon General was, if you look at the suicide rates and the mental health statistics, how many kids are being hospitalized, how many kids are being sent to the emergency room, how many kids are being treated for body dysmorphic, suicide, whatever it is. Look at any of those rates. You look at the states. I live in Arkansas. We never really went through a shutdown. My kids were out of school from March of 2020 to May of 2020. They went back full time in August of 2020. So they didn't ever have, we were one of the only states that never went through like a mandatory shelter in place. But yet our suicide rates are higher than the national average. So this is not hey, we were forced to seclude and isolate. In my opinion, the rise of these social media platforms happened to coincide just as COVID was hitting. So while
Mm-hmm.
COVID didn't help it, if you look at the years going into COVID, you can already see a steady increase in the mental health
Mm-hmm.
crisis. And it was because
Mm-hmm.
kids were becoming more and more and more addicted. I have
Mm-hmm.
a 29-year-old son and I have a
Mm-hmm.
16-year-old son. I didn't have to
Yeah.
deal with this with my 29-year-old, like I'm having to deal with my current
Uh-huh.
16-year-old. And so
Right.
I have everything. I have five boys between the ages of 29 and
You
16.
do.
I had
Wow.
five and now I have four. So,
Yeah.
but all spectrums. And it wasn't until my son, who was born in 2002, that I started seeing
Mm-hmm.
this more independent or dependency, I should say, dependency
Yeah.
on the screen. Now he's not so much
Mm.
dependent on the apps. He's just it's the constant need for the screen time. Now he's brilliant. He just
Mm-hmm.
left today for 7 weeks in Europe with honors college, for computer
Amazing.
engineering. So
Wow.
there are good things, right? But
Mm-hmm.
he didn't get sucked into these social media platforms the way his two younger brothers have. And there's this very fine line where you can see where this rise in dependency of
Yeah.
these apps coincided about the same time COVID did. It just became so addictive, and I don't think we can blame COVID. I think it's the platforms. I think it's the algorithms. I think it's our culture, our society. So maybe we were giving our
Yeah.
kids more time or whatever because we were
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Working, trying to manage their school, all that stuff. Yeah.
Well, but again, like in Arkansas, like I said, our kids were in school.
Yeah, not for you.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned the Attorney General Murphy. So he released that social media advisory in 2023, which was great, but we haven't seen any federal legislation passed since then. And he was pointing out the increased use of social media can lead to mental health outcomes, negative mental health
Mhm.
outcomes. So what bills are you supporting on the federal level that you believe will help this issue and make social media safer for children?
Well, let me say this first. I will tell you,
Mm-hmm.
the Surgeon General is amazing. He is
Mm-hmm.
completely aware. He listened to a whole roundtable of parents that have lost their children. He was
Mm-hmm.
very, very, very receptive and
Okay.
graceful and kind, and he is completely aware of the harms that are there. But he can
Mm-hmm.
only do so much. To your point, we need
Yep.
legislation. So
Mm-hmm.
I 100% am behind COSA. I have been working
Mm-hmm.
with senators hand in hand to get COSA
Mm-hmm.
passed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right now, I think we're at 68 co sponsors in the Senate. We were hoping to have it brought to the floor by now. I think we're
Yep.
hoping that it's going to come to the floor by June the 21st. I think Schumer has indicated that it's going to go to the floor for a vote by June
Mm-hmm.
the 21st. So fingers crossed on that
Mm-hmm.
one. So we'd love to see the Kids Online
Yeah.
Safety Act passed. It's got huge
Yeah.
bipartisan support. It has the duty of care in there, which means that if the safeguards fail on these platforms, that parents have the ability to hold the platforms responsible for the deficiency in their products.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Right.
so it allows for oversight. It's just there. It's a very comprehensive bill that I don't see how anybody couldn't support it. It puts American children
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost. And
Right.
again, it's a bipartisan
Agree.
bill. So
Right.
then you have COPA 2.0, which is great because then it highly restricts the ability for these products platforms to mine our children's data privacy. They,
Mm-hmm.
they can't collect it. It restricts it, and we
Mm-hmm.
need that.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes parental controls a lot easier. And then you speak to Sammy's Law, and I've actually met Sammy's dad. He's a great
Mm-hmm.
guy. I'm not really familiar with that one. But
Okay.
from what I've heard, speaking with his father, like, father's
Yeah.
done a great job. It takes a remarkable parent to be able to lose a child and to go forward and do something that big. That's huge.
Tell me about it. My interview with Sam is live now on the podcast if anyone wants to listen to that. And they can learn more about Sammy's Law there. But it basically adds third party protection that gets deep into the platform so that we can get alerts. Like right now, I really like Bark's parental monitoring technology, but it can't get certain things in Snapchat and TikTok because of their API blocks them from it. So this just digs that much deeper to really help us save our kids' life if they are served deadly content.
Well, and again, so, and I like the bark concept, but
Mm-hmm.
once you have a kid who is of a certain age who can earn a little bit of income, it is so easy
Mm-hmm.
for them to buy a Wi-Fi compatible device that you're not even aware of.
Right.
That, I mean, it takes $20 or $30 in their pocket that they buy some kind of
Mm-hmm.
old device from one of their friends off of, whatever. And then we have no oversight
Yeah.
to it. So that's when these laws become critical,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because if the kids listen, let me say it like this. I don't know how you were as a kid, but my mom would take my
Mm-hmm.
phone away
Mm-hmm.
from me. I had my phone in my
Mm-hmm.
room, my landline. And what she
Yeah.
didn't know is I had like 13 different phones hid all over my room. I remember I had one jacket that I put like a hairband on the end of the sleeve of the jacket, and I put the phone down in the sleeve of the
Oh my
jacket. So if
gosh.
my mom took my phone
Smart.
away from me, eh, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I just go in and get the hidden phone she wasn't aware of, plug it in the wall, and it'll
Yeah.
be really quiet. So
Yeah.
this generation thinks that way. And we
Mm-hmm.
have to recognize that that's what's going to happen. And if we are
Yeah.
naive enough to think that we're going to take their device away and they don't have access to it, we're fooling
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. So,
Yeah. What do you think about the states that are passing legislation where you have to get actual parental permission to sign up for an account? Like I think Tennessee, it's anyone under 18 starting next year will have to get their parents I don't know how the parents have to give permission, but if in reality they do, then that would help, right?
yeah, but then how do you do age verification? So, I mean,
Yeah.
what if a
It's
kid goes in and says,
ID.
yeah, but then you have the whole
Yeah,
VPN
you'd have to
things
do.
that kids, I mean, I can tell you right now, my 16-year-old can get a broken, or I don't even know what it's called. Like when you get the
Yeah.
VPN,
When people say like VPN, they set up their own VPNs. I'm like, you lost me. I don't know what you're
yeah, I
talking
don't
about.
know exactly either, but
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, my kids have already been like, well, that would take us like 10 minutes. I'm like, what are you
Oh
talking
God.
about? Like, no, it would take us like 10
Yeah.
minutes, because in Arkansas right now we have our governor put a no access to any adult rated
Hmm.
websites. So
Oh, okay.
no adult rated websites. So all
How does that work
so
for
if I was to
like
try to take
pornography
my
sites?
phone, which is an adult phone,
Hmm.
and I was to try
Hmm.
to search pornography, I cannot do it, because I can't do it. I'd have to go through a whole verification process. But the funny thing
Wow.
is, I got 16, 17-year-old kids here who are like, Miss Jenny, do you know how easy that is to get around? You just have to do this, 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 and this. I'm like, what are you
Oh
talking
God.
about? I mean, it takes them like 5 minutes, things we don't even begin to understand. So they're so
Hmm.
tech
Okay.
savvy. And it's not that I'm not tech savvy. I am.
Right. Right.
It's not that I didn't grow
Okay.
up in the internet era, like, and grew up with, in fact, I have Snapchat, I have TikTok, I have Instagram, I have Facebook, like, I have Discord, I have all of it, mostly to watch the kids,
Hmm.
but I have all of
Hmm.
it.
Right. You know how to
I
work
know how
it.
to work
I
it.
don't even some of
Yeah.
that.
It's not like I'm out of date with it. They're just
Yeah.
that much savvier than what we are.
And they're so determined because of that addiction. Like they'll figure it out and they'll spend probably hours if they needed to.
Yes. So that's what I was going to say. Like, we need the
Um,
legislation. So,
yeah,
like,
right.
if
Okay.
what you're saying about Tennessee, and I don't understand that bill, I'm not familiar with that bill, but if they're
Yeah.
trying to do age restricted where you have to have parental consent, that's great if the kids follow those rules, right? But if your kid is
Right.
determined, what are you going to do? So
Right.
behind like your back. And that doesn't mean your kid
Mm-hmm.
is a bad kid. And that doesn't mean you're a bad parent. When they're
Right.
that
Mm-hmm.
addicted and they're that
Mm-hmm.
dependent, they're going to find a way.
Yeah. Okay, so we need legislation to require the platforms to be safe by design and be held accountable if they serve harmful content to a child, and then that child is harmed or killed in some way, and the parent needs to be able to sue and win. Um, and you've entered into a lawsuit against TikTok, or tell me about this.
It's against TikTok and Snapchat. Yes.
Okay,
So I'm part of the
we're
JCCD.
okay with several families.
Yes. I think there's
Okay,
approximately 800 families in it. We are one of the, I
800.
think so. We are one of the
I can check.
bellwether cases.
Right.
So, and it's going up for bellwether selection now. So I'll be finding
Okay.
out soon whether or not our case is going to be one of the cases that are fully heard
Mhm.
out.
Okay, and I've been following the Neville versus Snap case in which all those children, all but one, were killed and poisoned and killed from a fentanyl laced pill they purchased on Snapchat. And from what I understand, Bellwether is there's just so many cases that they can't try them all at once, so they kind of group them together based on common experiences and then choose how they're going to try them. Right? Is that? Can you explain that
I
better?
mean, so I'm not a lawyer, so I can't
Yeah.
go into it, but
Right.
I'll give you my layman's understanding, which
Yeah.
is,
How do you
yeah.
understand it?
So from what I understand, how I understand it is there's so many cases that
Hmm.
are encompassing these online harms. So there are all these
Hmm.
parents who are suing these multiple platforms for
Hmm.
harms or damages for their children. And from what I understand, the bellwether cases, because they can't, the courts just don't have time to hear, 800 something cases. They're
Right.
choosing a small portion of cases.
And your law firm is Social Media Victims Law Center for this one?
Yes.
Okay.
When
Yeah.
you lose a child, like it hurts, I mean, and it breaks apart so many families. And that's one of the,
Hmm.
like, I look at my children, I look at my Mason's brothers, and I see the pain in their eyes. I look at Mason's friends, and I see the pain in their eyes. And I'm walking around with my own pain and my own just grief. But then the mom in me wants to fix this for them, and I can't. And
Hmm.
social media stole their brother, their best friend, away from them. And I'm telling you, like, these kids are hurting. And these kids come to me all the time. And they are like, Miss Jennie, thank you for fighting for us. Because I was sent this, I was sent this, I was sent this, and this shouldn't be happening. And these kids are because they lost Mason,
Hmm.
they have become so aware.
Hmm.
And it's so hard to see these kids and not be able to fix it for them. Because as a mom, that's what I
Yeah.
want to do. I'm going to fix it for them.
Oh, yeah. Right. And you're doing everything you can do. I mean, having this conversation and making other parents aware so that they can help. And how are you, when parents say, like, what can I do? What are you telling them? Are you telling them contact your representative, have them vote for COSA? Can you explain that?
Yeah. So, first of all, I would say, as a parent, start talking to your kid and just really
Yeah.
get engaged with your kid. Ask your kid, have you experienced social
Yeah.
media harms? Then explain what a social media harm is. Have you been cyberbullied? Have you been sexploited? Have
Hmm.
you been asked for drugs? Have you had self harm content? Have you had suicidal content, depressing content? Like,
Hmm.
has any of this been sent to you without you asking for it? Or are you searching
Hmm.
it out and finding it? But more often than not,
Yeah.
it's being sent to them. So that, as a parent, that would be my very first thing, because parents need to
Hmm.
have these conversations. And I think that educators need to start telling parents, you need to have these conversations with your kids. What is a social media harm? What does that look like? But secondly,
Yep.
yes, contact your senator, contact your local congressperson, contact your governor, contact your AG, send emails over and over and over again, pick up the phone and call. I have gone and sat down. So again, living in Arkansas, I have gone and sat down in Tom Cotton's office and Bozeman's office, and I just sat there and like, hi, I'm Jenny from Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm your constituent. I would like to speak to somebody. Now, I know that not every parent
Mm-hmm.
has the ability to go to DC and sit in their offices, but if you keep
Right.
calling and you keep sending emails, eventually they're going to respond. So, the more
Right.
parents we can get to do this, it takes parents talking to their kids and really understanding how their kids are being impacted, and then them
Mm-hmm.
being the adults and then working to drive the change.
Yeah, because if you understand what your kids are seeing and how they're being affected, that's going to light a fire in you to do something about it. And you don't have to know even the names of any bills. You can just contact your representative and say, I don't like that my kid sees this on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, or I don't like that my kid can sign up on whatever device they want. I can't control their access. Whatever they like the personal experiences, and we elect them to make decisions that are in our best interests. And so they want our advisement on that. And they want to be able to point back and say, I have 700 parents who contacted me this week, all wanting kids to be safe online. Like, I have to vote in their favor. That's what I'm elected to do.
That would make
So,
those of us who are advocating, those of us who
yeah.
are up in DC, that would make our lives so much easier, because I will tell you,
Mm-hmm.
we have sat down with several legislators and they're
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, we're getting feedback from parents that they are worried about, First Amendment issues, or um, other content issues that they can be
Mm-hmm.
restricted to. And that's if you actually research these bills, or if you
Mm-hmm.
just say, I don't want my child having access to drugs, pornography,
Mm-hmm.
self harm, suicide.
Right.
Like, I don't want that, body dysmorphic. Just say that. And
Yeah.
that, that's all you need to say.
And we have to balance out all of the millions of dollars that the social media companies spend on lobbying to push this free speech argument. And we get drowned out by them. And so we need to speak out. House.gov, there's you can put your zip code at the top right and find your representative. And it takes 2 minutes to email them, or you can call and do it multiple times. I mean, even once, but do it multiple times. Um, I am speaking today to Congresswoman Kathy McMorris Rogers. So she's the chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee. They are marking up legislation this week to protect kids online. Is there anything that you would want to express to Chair
I've
Rogers?
actually met her in person.
Okay, good. Good.
And I
Okay.
had Mason's phone with me, and I showed her personally some of the videos
Wow.
that he was sent,
Okay.
and she was so compassionate.
Yeah.
She welled up with tears because she
Mm-hmm.
has a son the same age as
Mm-hmm.
Mason. So
Yeah.
she, out of all of us that were sitting in that room, she took the time to come over and talk to me, and
Mm-hmm.
she was very, very receptive. I think that she is doing the right thing. I'd like to see the bills that they're working on have more meat on the bones. That's
Mm-hmm.
just what I'd like to say, is just we need to have more accountability. I'm not,
Yeah.
again, I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a legislator. I just would like to see a very healthy, meaty bill
Mm-hmm.
that holds big tech accountable. But
Mm-hmm.
it, Kathy Morris Rogers is she is fighting on behalf of American children, and she's doing a really good job
Yeah.
of that. And she
Mm-hmm.
has my support 100%. And I'm telling you, like, she she welled up with tears when she heard my story. She
Mm-hmm.
saw Mason's picture. She saw
Okay.
the videos. So I have a lot of respect for her.
Thank you. I'll mention that today. And yeah, she's a mom of three, and this is her last year in her position. She's retiring. And so her goal before she's retired is to push through this important kids online safety legislation, a number of different bills. And the newest one being to sunset Section 230, which is what all of these companies use to hide behind and not be liable for the harms. So that's a
Big
big
one.
one.
The one thing
Yeah.
about the sunset of the Section 230, which I cannot love her more for bringing this
Mm-hmm.
up, is you have these other platforms, which we haven't discussed.
Okay.
This mother from Istanbul reached out to me
Mm-hmm.
after seeing the some articles, some media about this, and she reached out to me. She found me through some suicide groups, and then reached out to me through Facebook actually, and
Mm-hmm.
told me that her son went to a specific a posting like a posting thread website that
Mm-hmm.
her son found a specific means, and it detailed out how to go through with it, and she lost him, and I want to say he was 15 years old.
Oh
So
no.
this is a global issue, but here's what's happening
Yeah.
with Section 230. Because of Section 230, we have these websites that are out there that kids all over the world can see. It's not just American kids. There are kids all
Mm-hmm.
over the world that can access this suicidal content. If you go and you Google these certain search terms, it will take you directly
Mm-hmm.
to the dark web, and you can pull it up like that. And her 15-year-old son
Okay.
did. And it
Mm.
detailed out how to, and I think you know which website I'm talking about. So we're not
Okay.
just failing our own kids, we're failing kids all across the world. So I
Mm-hmm.
love the sunset of Section 230. But again, I'm not
Yeah.
a lawyer, I'm not a legislator. This is just my opinion.
Yeah. No. But moms need to hear moms talk about it because lawyers talk about it a little differently, and I'm always like, wait, can you say that dumber? Like I don't know how else.
Just say it in the way
You
like
don't know what
this
you're
is how it
saying.
makes me feel, because that's all I can speak to is
Yeah.
how it makes me feel, and how it makes me feel when
Yeah.
I get a message from a mom all the way across the world saying your
Mm-hmm.
story impacted me, and this is how I lost my
Mm-hmm.
son, and it's a US based
Yeah.
site. And then I go
Yeah.
and I look at it and I'm just like, I was sick to my stomach. I cannot believe
Yeah.
this is there. But because of Section 230, it's allowed to be there.
Yeah. It is tough to think there are humans in this world, Americans, anywhere, any person from anywhere that create websites that encourage harm to children. That is literally the point of the site. And
This isn't just
I
harms to
can't
children, this is harms to
understand.
anybody. This is step by
Yeah.
step instructions of how to take your life,
Oh my
and
God.
children have access.
Okay.
I just,
Mm,
yeah, that just takes it to a whole new level. Like, I,
yeah. Who are these people?
having lost a loved one, if there's anybody out
Mm-hmm.
there who's thinking about taking their life, they don't understand the impact that they have on the world. They may not feel
Mm-hmm.
it, but when Mason passed, I had a mom who, when Mason was in 6th grade, he was riding the bus with her kindergartner, and a storm came in, and they were on the bus, and the little girl was scared, and all the kids were making fun of her. And Mason didn't want the kids making fun of her. So he got up from the back of the bus where the 6th graders were sitting, and he went to the front of the bus, and he sat with her, and he held her hand.
Oh.
And that little girl is now in middle school. And when she found out that Mason had died, she fell apart because he was her
Mm-hmm.
hero. He was her hero.
Mm-hmm.
And so even when we went to like our local grocery store, and we mentioned my husband was on the phone and the cashier overheard, and she was like, "Oh, are you Mason's dad?" And she says, "I was here one night when Mason." There's a picture right up there. There's a that gray and white one right there. She's
Mm-hmm.
like, I
Yeah.
was in the store that night when he and his friends were going through the store, being mischievous little kids. They had little blowhorns and whatever going through the store, being teenagers. And she said,
Yeah.
I remember your son coming in, and she's like, I wanted to be so mad at them because they were being so mischievous in the store. She said, but she's like, he had the biggest smile, and he was so charismatic, and he was so charming. She's like, so I get let him off with a warning. But she's like, but he stood out to me. So the
Yeah.
fact that people think that they're not valued when the checkout woman at your local store remembers you, or a little girl
Mm-hmm.
from 6 years ago remembers you holding her hand. People need to
Yeah.
realize their lives matter. And when they're gone,
Yeah.
there is a hole that it just can't be filled. It's not just your family, it's not just your friends.
Yeah.
There is an emptiness that happens for people you didn't even realize you had an impact on. So
Yeah.
that's to everybody who is having, or anybody who's having any kind of self-harm thoughts, just mental
Yeah.
awareness. Like we need you here, and the world's not going to
Yeah.
be a better place without you in it. You may not feel like it, but you're needed and you're
Right.
loved.
Yeah. That's a really, really important point. I have a family member that died by suicide, and she definitely felt like everyone would be happier if she weren't here. And it was the total opposite. And I think I hear that all the time. And when you're in that suicidal place, that is what you feel. So that reminder is really important. Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry, I just
The social media companies are just encouraging
well,
it.
that's
And
doing
so,
is they take the
yeah,
most vulnerable, our children,
yeah,
when they're going through their
I
most
know.
vulnerable times, and they exploit
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay. Is there anything else you want to share with parents about Mason, about his story, or about anything that you've learned?
I mean, Mason was just a beautiful, beautiful, happy, well adjusted, well traveled. We went all over the place. Child went all over the place. Like,
Mm.
and everywhere we went, he never met a stranger, and he was so loved and popular in sports. He was in football and track, and I mean, just so loved. And there's such a lack of energy without him here because he was just so large. And he was so funny. Um, and I want parents to stop blaming me. I think that I am every mom. And if you're a mom, you're listening to me and you think that, no, 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 that could never happen to me. Yes, it can. If it can happen to me, it can happen to you. And that's the worst part about it. It's not like I could have done anything different. I didn't have the tools. The tools are not there for our parents, plain and simple. So
Mhm.
it's terrifying. And that's why parents like me are speaking up. We're not speaking up to bring our children back. We're speaking up to save your children, my
Yeah.
grandchildren.
And it is scary. And some people will say about my platform, like you're fear mongering. And I'm like, are you afraid? You should be afraid because we need to speak up to protect our kids in order to, they're not safe. And so we should feel scared enough to speak up and push this legislation to pass to make them
Oh
safer.
yeah, this is not fear
And
mongering. There is
no,
when you lose a child, the way I lost a child, the fear should have been put in me. I already had a fear of social media. I already had a healthy fear, a healthy respect. Losing a child takes it to a whole new level. You should be afraid. Every parent should be afraid because what is at our kids' fingertips, what is right here, is life threatening. Period.
Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your
Can
story.
you
I
throw the
am
phone?
so sorry that this happened to your family. I say this a lot, but you and parents like you are the heroes of our entire generation. Like the fact that you can go through this tragedy over and over and tell the story to help other parents protect our kids is something that I can't thank you enough for. And I'm so grateful to you for all the work you're doing. And I'm just here to amplify these stories and get parents to act to protect their own children. So again, Jenny, thank you so much for being so open
I
today.
appreciate it. Thank you. It's hard to take on recognition, um, because I don't feel like I'm
Yeah.
doing anything that another mom wouldn't do. And I look at my peers and the moms who have been in this for 5, 6 years and they're still fighting. And it's so exhausting and it's so difficult. And, we're not
Mhm.
able to grieve fully because we're so worried about helping other parents and saving other children to where we're actually
Mhm.
re-traumatizing ourselves every single time we tell our stories, but we're doing it to save other children. But it's
Right.
really hard to hear like you're a hero, where I look at my peers and I'm like, you're my hero, I love you so much, and they're like, Jenny, no, 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 no. But thank you, I appreciate it.
You too. Yeah. And all of your work will pay off. Like it will. things are going in the right direction. I think we're very, very close. So I will be celebrating with all of you guys when COSA passes and when all these important legislation
Yeah,
pass.
I hope that
And it'll be because of you.
I'm hoping that, there's going to be a big turnout when COSA passes, and I hope my fellow moms and dads are with me, standing hand in hand, and knowing that we've put our heart and souls into doing what we can to save not just American children, but children all across the world.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennie. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.